Good morning, Rabbi.
Good morning.
We are learning Mishnah Bava Kamma, Parak Ches, Chapter 8, Mishnah Aleph, Mishnah 1. We started the Mishnah yesterday. We'll run through it from the beginning. Hachayva b'chaverei, one who damages his friend, he wounds his friend. Chayva lav misham chamisha dvarim, he has to pay him for 5 things. Benesek for damage, b'tzar for pain, b'ripoy for healing, b'sheves for lost wages, b'baishes for embarrassment. Benezak Ketzad, how does one calculate damages or damage in the value of the person? Sima es einoi, if he blinded his eye, kata es yadai, or cut off his hand, shiba es ragla, broke his leg. Royan oisai kilahu evanim b'shuk, we look at him as if he is being sold as a slave in the market. B'shamin kama hayafa v'chama hu yafa, and we evaluate how much he was worth before the injury and how much he's worth afterwards. Tsar, suffering, kavoy b'shpud b'mismar, he burnt it with a hot metal spit or with a nail. Vafilo al tziparnoi, even just on his fingernail. Makam shenes chabura, which is a place where, or any such place where it doesn't make a wound. Aimdin kama adam kayetze b'zeh reitza litol leis mistar b'kach. We evaluate how much a person would be willing to pay in order to avoid the pain that would have to come if anyway this injury would have to happen. So if, let's say, his arm was cut off, if anyway his arm would have to be cut off, and how much would a person be willing to pay to have to go through that without pain? That amount is what the attacker pays the person he injured. Ripui, healing. Hiko, if he struck him, chayv la'paisa, he's got to heal him. Olabait smachim, if blisters grew near the wound, imachmas hamaka chayiv, if it's due to the wound, the attacker has to pay for the healing. Shalei machmas hamaka, if it wasn't because of the wound, pater, he's exempt. Chayis v'nistra, it healed, or rather means it partially healed, and then went back to what it was before, or that repeated a second time. As many times that it happens, chayv l'rapais, he has to heal him. Chayis called sarka, but if let's say it healed completely, and then the blisters came back, he is not obligated to heal him. Okay, so that's what we got up to yesterday. This is the new part of the mission we didn't do. Sheves. We said that the attacker has to pay for lost wages or loss of employment. How do we calculate that? So here we go. Ryan Aisai Kiilahu Shemer Keshuyim. We look at this wounded person as a person who would be a cucumber patch guard, meaning he'd be doing something very, because it's very, 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 very small. Because he already gave him the value of his hand or the value of his foot. So the story is like this. The Mishna story is that, let's say, for instance, he injured him, he cut off his arm. And because of that, whatever he was doing beforehand, he cannot do anymore. He'll never be able to return to what he did anymore. Okay, so what is it? So what can he do now without an arm? He could be a guard. He could be a watchman. So now, but right now, the case is that he just was recently injured. He's still recuperating. So he can't even do that. Forget about the old work that he can't do. He can't even do his new job. And what you pay for, says the Mishnah, what the attacker pays for is for the loss of what he could be doing now. The loss of what he was doing before, that's already included in the value of the arm and the leg. Meaning before we said that you evaluate him as a slave as to his difference in price, but when he still had his arm, or after he lost his arm. When you pay for that, that's already considered including the value of the work that he could have done when he still had his arm. So therefore, what you're left with paying is for what he presently is losing his wages, because right now he's too sick to do even that new type of work. So when he loses out from that new type of work while he's incapacitated, that is what you pay. That's what it means you pay for sheves. You pay for the loss of employment. Next, baishas, embarrassment. Now, embarrassment means there are going to be certain things you do to a person that embarrasses him. You spit on him. We'll see that one of the things they brought down here. You spit on the person. You slap the person. You fell on top of the person. Even if there's no injury involved, all these are examples of things that cause embarrassment. So Boishes, the Mishnah says, The payment is going to depend according to the embarrasser or the person who got embarrassed, which means a person who is of a lower status, a lower person, a lower status person. Okay, so when he disgraces someone, that's a greater disgrace because it's a lower person doing it. It creates a greater embarrassment to the person who became embarrassed. And the other way, if the person is of a higher status, his embarrassment is greater than the person of a lower status. And therefore, the Mishnah says, it all depends on the person who is embarrassing or the person getting embarrassed. And now the Mishnah goes into a couple into a halacha law about this payment of, or more than a couple of some halachas about the obligation to pay for embarrassment. So mevayesh sa'arim, a person who embarrasses a person who is undressed, he's naked. Now he's already in a state of embarrassment. And what do you do to the guy? You spit on him. So we or hamavayesh sasuma, you embarrass a person who's blind, which means he can't see what's happening to him. He doesn't know what his embarrassment is, but he senses it. Or hamavayesh esayoshin, he embarrassed a person who's sleeping. While he was sleeping, he didn't know anything, right? He didn't know he was being embarrassed. He didn't feel any embarrassment. But when he wakes up, after he wakes up, he realized that the other person disgraces him. In all these cases, the Mishnah says chayev. Do not think that in any of these cases you are not going to be liable for embarrassment because we have different reasons to think the embarrassment is not so big. The person's already undressed. The person was sleeping. Whatever it may be, even though there are reasons to mitigate or to diminish the embarrassment that you caused, nonetheless, the Mishnah is saying chayev, you have to pay for that embarrassment. The yashin shabiyish. Now, let's say while you were sleeping, you embarrassed someone. You know, when you slept, you rolled over, you fell off the bed and fell on top of someone. So you didn't even, when you did it, you didn't realize you were doing it. Potter, you're going to be exempt. And the reason the Mishnah is going to say soon the reason for that. Basically, the reason is that we derive from the Torah that embarrassment only is paid if you intend to embarrass. But if you didn't intend to do the act, such as in the case the person is sleeping, you're exempt. So here's another case. Nafal min hagag. If a person fell from a roof, the hizik ubiyish, and he damaged someone, he fell on top of the person. When you fall on top of a person, you can damage him, which the case is you did, and you embarrassed him. It's an embarrassment for someone to fall on top of you. So what happens in that case? Chayev ala nezek upater ala beishas. You got to pay for the damage, but you're exempt from the embarrassment. What's the source? What's the source that tells us that you have to have intention to do the act? Shenamar v'sholcha yada v'chazika b'mevushav. This pasuk reads the following. I'm going to read you. They bring down here the whole pasuk in English translation. If men fight one another, and the wife of one of them approaches to rescue her husband from the hand of the one who is hitting him, all right. So her husband's getting walloped, and she was trying to save him. So what does she do? And the Torah says, and to do so, to save him, she stretches out her hand and grasps his embarrassing place. That means she grabbed him by his private parts, not to damage him, but to embarrass him, and to stop him from hitting her husband. So what does it say there? It says she's got to pay for the embarrassment she caused. Okay? But in that case, you see, the pasuk adds the words, she stretches out she stretches out her hand and grasps him. Those words, stretches out her hand, implies that she's doing it intentionally. And therefore, that teaches us, as the Mishnah concludes, ein l'chayev ala beishas, one is not obligated to pay for embarrassment, ad sheyeh miskaven, until you intend to do what you are doing. Now, what's interesting is, in the notes they bring down here from the Taisvis Yantif, however, if he did intend to harm the victim, but he must pay for embarrassment, even if he intended only to injure him and not to embarrass him. Meaning, let's say somehow or another, the way I understand it, if let's say you intended to injure a person, but you didn't intend to embarrass him, it was a kind of a thing that you meant to injure him, you injured him, and the embarrassment was unintended. Meaning you weren't expecting, you didn't intend to embarrass him with this act, but it came out that you did. So even though the embarrassment was unintended, but since the injury was intended, you're obligated for the injury and for the embarrassment because you intended to do the act. Once you intend to do the act, then already you got to pay for everything that comes out of that act, including the embarrassment, even if the embarrassment itself was unintentional. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Rabbi.